It's 6 o'clock, and good evening and welcome to the Quarry Valley Unified Union School District November 21st meeting. If you would all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball.
Thank you. The first order of business would be the approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike to approve the agenda. Are there any additions, changes, deletions to the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. General public comment. Is there any public present that would like to discuss an item not on the agenda this evening?
Well, I'm here. My name is Linda Smith. I used to be on the board. I was a teacher at Pulteney High School. And I'm recently just started subbing again at the Pulteney. And I guess I've got about, very quickly, here, I brought you candy. Okay, you want some candy?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, take some. In the subbing, I am feeling that I have never seen, except in nursing, such tired people. You guys must be exhausted. I can only imagine how exhausted you are.
Leave that right there.
Yeah, I'll leave it right there.
Hey, Tom.
And I look at it as, because I was also a nurse, I look at it like, at the time when I was nursing and you'd be with a family member or family as they experienced cancer or death, I have never seen such exhaustion. And the teachers, I can't even imagine how they're feeling because they're so fantastic. You know, I went around because I hadn't seen them for a while, you know, and just said hi and how are you. The class of the 5th and 6th grade, you know, it's just overwhelming. There's a lot of kids in there, 25, 26, 27. So I have as a community member, I have a real, not problem, I don't want to say problem because everything is a problem, just a concern at the numbers without the help. You know, 3 years of COVID has been horrible for all of you. I commend you. I have so much respect for all of you and the principals and the teachers and the assistants to get through this. I just want to say that to you. I don't want to be negative about it, but there's, you know, they're feeling anxious, I think, just because they're so worried. There's, as you must be too, at the fact that as in the country, we're behind. And I think that weighs on everybody at this point of how do you get past this to help these, because what we're here for is the kids, you know? I mean, they're behind the 8 ball. And I think they're just feeling that way also. And I know you're in budget time, so it might be nice to offer them some kind of assistance. Like I said, just walking into the schools, I used to say to the kids, you know, some of the special ed kids that I taught, it's amazing that they come every day. I look at the teachers and the principals and the assistants, and I look at them and say, I'm amazed that they come in. I don't know if it's in West Rutland or Proctor too, but I would say so. I'm totally, I will, you know, I know I'm just a community member, but if there's anything that you're looking for to try to do something and you don't have enough time and you need somebody to do whatever, I'm retired, I'm here, I would be glad to do something. You know, I know it's hard to think about celebration, but you got through it. You know, I know that it's still here and it's going to be here, but to somehow elevate the mood a little bit would be a really nice thing for everybody to have, not just to thank the teachers and the assistants but to thank the boards and the principals and superintendent. And, it's amazing how we did that. But that's just my, I was in kindergarten, and I have to say, I was totally wonderfully elevated by Mrs. White in her kindergarten class. Kristen, if you're there, she's just a wonderful person to be in that classroom. But I just think in order to go forward, there's got to be some elevation of, because I think they're just feeling like, how do we get these kids when we were already 3 years ago talking about difficulties, and now we're 3 years ahead of the game. And I just think that they're feeling no one has said to me, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed. I'm just feeling like I said, when I was in the hospital working, when you were getting that feeling from families, when doctor comes in and says you got cancer, or I'm sorry that you're going to die, that feeling that goes around. I think I just felt like that in the school systems. And like I said, if it's in Pulteney, then I think it probably is everywhere in our district. But I can't say enough about you wonderful people. You made it, you did it, and a lot of it is because you are fantastic people. I know some of you individually, some of you I don't know, but just as a community member, I want to, say, the Candy is such a small thank you for all that you've done through these 3 years. So, and again, if there's anything I can do, I would be happy to help. With the mental health, somehow helping people, just saying, you are amazing people too, and don't feel like the whole thing is on you. It's the country, we're all experiencing it, and how can we help you get so that you're feeling better about what you're doing with the kids. So that's my spiel. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? New business. So new business to come before the board is discussion about a Quarry Valley golf team, and I guess that's why we have these two across from us today.
Eddie Bove?
Sorry?
No Eddie Bove? No.
So do you guys want to talk to us about it? Do you want to give us your thoughts on it? We all know, as per our F8 policy, that ADs and principals meet and talk about new programs and procedures and recommend to the board. So someone came to the ADs about this, and now they're coming and letting us know their feelings about this proposal.
So I guess I'll start. I know one of the goals of the board, what we talked about a few years, is to start offering programs that are Quarry Valley programs.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my feeling moving forward on that is really there needs to be, instead of somebody coming and saying, okay, I want to start a rock climbing team. Okay, sounds like a good idea. We'll start a rock climbing team. I think more thought needs to be put into it. We need to figure out what the interests are out there, what activities are popular with the kids, what activities could possibly stand on their own and potentially not hurt existing programs. I think surveys with kids, with the communities of what else they would like to see. I guess my fear is that because one person or a couple people think it's a good idea and might think there's interest, that we just take it and run with it. I mean, we wouldn't do that for courses. We wouldn't take a community member and say, okay, I want to start a marine biology class, and we would start a marine biology class. So I just think you have to put thought into these things. What my fear is that it is now a fall sport. We do have soccer, and we do have bass fishing. Speaking for West Rutland, I'll let Jake speak for Proctor. You know, those, and again, I don't know, this is really not about golf. It's about what would the potential impact be of existing sports. And I don't have the answer whether there would be at all or there wouldn't be. I don't know that, but I do know that, you know, our numbers are very strong on the girls' side, not so strong on the boys' side. I think Jake will probably say the same thing. What kind of impact would that have on existing sports? I would hate to start something to the detriment of something that is already present and existing. And I'm not sure that it would hurt it or wouldn't, but I think those are the kind of questions we need to ask up front before we just throw something at the wall and say, oh, let's start this because it sounds good by a handful of people. There may be something better to start. There may be something in the, you know, we already do, as I said, in the fall, we offer bass fishing and soccer. We don't have an oppositional sport in the winter for basketball, and in the spring, we don't. You know, I've had people come to me who've wanted to start lacrosse programs. I've had people come to me who've wanted to start rock climbing programs, mountain biking programs, but you know, I gave them reason why that might not be a good idea to do just at West Rutland because of the potential of damaging an existing sport. They understood that, and we moved on. I've always said, though, that with a combination of the schools, there may be other opportunities. My feeling is, though, that has to be thoughtful. That cannot be just willy-nilly. It has to be thoughtful discussion and research. That's my feeling.
Right, and some of those teams that you talk about, like rock climbing and like that, unfortunately, you have a limited number. Like, I think if there's 5 on a team or 4 on a team, so of how many you can have on a team.
So
also.
golf would be 5.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring 5 to a meet or a match.
So say you had 12 people that wanted to play, what would you?
You'd probably have to have cuts.
I mean, right, and again, not knowing who those kids are, I mean, I know, speaking, Dave's not here, but, I know Pulteney's football team was struggling this year.
Mm-hmm.
If it hadn't been probably for the 4 or 5 kids that we sent over there to play football there, so I'm not sure they would have had a program.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of those kids would maybe or maybe not
Sure.
join the golf team, which would, impact their football team, which would be, not sure that would go over real well in the town of Pulteney, nor would it go over real well in the towns of West Rutland and Proctor when it comes to soccer. I just think it needs to be a thoughtful discussion and thoughtful research to do that before you just say, okay, sounds like a good idea, some kids want to play golf, let's do it, without knowing what the damage could be to existing sports. And it's not about not starting golf.
Right, no,
It's
I get what you're
about,
saying.
preserving programs that we have. That's really what's
And Joe and I have
Can
had,
I just say before you go
Yeah.
further, and I'm sorry, my mistake. This is Joe Harrington, West Rutland AD, Vice Principal, and Jake Eaton, AD Phys Ed from Proctor. I'm sorry, I should have introduced you, but I just presume everyone knows who you guys are.
and Joe and I have spoken too quite a bit. We've been out ahead of this, and Joe's basically spoke for the both of us. I'm a passionate and avid golfer, so this is hard for me, but I'm not sure right now in Proctor and in West Rutland, there's a screaming need for golf, especially in the fall. Even since I've been here, we haven't had golf since it moved to the fall. And even when we did have it in the spring, we would only have 2 or 3 kids that played. They were very successful. Nick Ojala, Braden Fox, to name a few. If that was in the fall, I bet you they both would have told you they would have played soccer. Or if they didn't play soccer, you're severely hamstringing the soccer program as it is. As it is, our boys have 13 to 14 kids. The bass fishing program this year was all Proctor boys, which in the past those boys had played fall sports in the past when they were younger. So it's like Joe said, I would love to see us offer new things, and if there's a serious need, I'd get behind it. But I'm not sure it's the right time. There is help coming with numbers for our boys, but now I think the cycle's gonna hit our girls pretty soon for fall sports.
So when is the last time do you think that we sent out, and I don't remember a time we sent out a Quarry Valley survey on
It
sports?
was probably the year before we combined. I think it's
We-
good 5 years ago we did it.
And then
Okay.
here's the other thing, Lisa, too. Also, logistically, back when we did it, John Ojala was not to use names, but he was our soccer coach, and he's the pro and runs Proctor Pitt. We ran a ton of meets there
Yeah.
for Proctor with that team, and he wouldn't be able to host any meets, and he would have a hard time probably giving us a lot of time because Proctor Pitt has had such growth and strong membership there. It would be a small cost, $200 to $300 for he would charge us a range
Yeah.
membership for the whole team, but he couldn't commit to us having meets there and maybe only getting the kids out 1 to 2 times a week.
Okay. So what do we think
I'd like
about?
to, I'm sorry, we're doing our winter meeting tonight, so that's why he couldn't be here, but I just want to follow up on Polney's standpoint too. I mean, I talked to Dave this afternoon before I left, and I know, same concerns that Joe and Jake have about depleting from the fall sports. One of the other things for us down in Polney too, especially if you're looking at Proctor Pittsford, I mean, there's 3 Proctor kids that are playing football at Otter Valley just because of the distance and the travel, and that's one of the problems too we're looking at is, if we had some Polney kids that were interested, it's probably a good 45 minutes to an hour by car to get up to Proctor Pittsford from down here. So, that's one of the things looking at too. But again, just sharing from Polney's aspect, sharing the same concerns about, losing, it might not sound a lot, but if you lose 2 or 3 athletes from your fall sports teams, you could be hurting there on that part.
I mean, there's also always the possibility that we, consider combining programs down the road, which may be might not be the most popular thing in the world to say.
You said it, I didn't.
But yeah, I did say it. I'll own it. But, if it ever gets to that point, then you will obviously be able to offer other things. But it really does come down to giving it some thoughtful consideration. And really looking deeply in what happens in the winter, what sports would not impact basketball, what in the spring would not impact current baseball teams, and what are those sports that, some things don't mesh, like wrestling and basketball don't mesh. You
Right.
might have a certain group of kids who would be wrestlers, but they would never be basketball players.
Right.
And
So you got to kind of think about what those sports are and those activities, and you really need to think about
But-
what the students want.
And what scares me, when I first got here, as the AD was, 12 years ago, lacrosse killed baseball in Proctor. A storied, tradition. I mean, they won 5 championships when I was in high school, and then when I got here, we didn't even have baseball because a group of parents had started a lacrosse program, which was probably great at the time, but it's proof that you can't juggle too many sport, unfortunately.
Right. So do you guys think that it would have value to put a survey together and send it out like a 6 through 11 kind of survey? I mean, 12th graders, no disrespect, but you're leaving the program.
Yep.
And 6th graders are coming, can play up, so, and maybe send that out in the spring.
Yeah, and I think you can get a list of what all the VPA-sponsored activities are and list them and have kids pick their top 3 or 5 of the things that they would consider. And I could do it for my school, and Jake
Right.
can obviously do it for Proctor, and we could at least get an idea of where the kids' interests are. And hey, if there's a huge interest for golf, then
Right.
that leads to further discussion.
And I think
I'm a golfer too. I kind of wish I'd played golf in high school. But it's really not about that. It's
Right.
about thoughtful.
I think it would be interesting on the survey, though, that it's set up in a manner that, like, these are the sports, like soccer, bass fishing, golf. Pick one, it's like, you can check one.
Yep.
So it not just a list of sports and go through, because you could pick 3 sports, but they all
Yeah.
compete with each other.
Right.
So I would think they almost kind of need to be, if you could segment them out in the survey so they know, like, if I'm picking this, then I probably can't play this, that
And
kind
that
of
was,
thing.
and Lisa, that was another discussion Joe and I talked about, like, since they would only maybe, I mean, not saying you don't have, obviously you have to practice golf to be good, but could they do both? And Joe and I both agree that's just not possible, because, I mean, you guys have you've been parents of kids that played, like, what
Right.
if the star forward on the soccer team has a golf match and he misses Friday's practice and he's allowed to play a game against,
Or they-
whoever on
they have to
Saturday?
decide. We have the same thing. We have track and field now in baseball. We started track and field when we didn't have a baseball team because we had to have something else for those kids.
Right,
We've actually been able to sustain, going into this year for 2 years now, sustain baseball and track and field. But track and field, you can do it in limited numbers. And, I did have a student who wanted to do both, and I thought I was saving him from himself. Really is what it come down to. Was
Right.
He was gonna go to baseball practice, and he was gonna go to track practice, and he was gonna miss some track meets because of a baseball game, and miss baseball games because of a track meet. It was just too much. So I think you have to sometimes, save them from themselves.
right,
The other thing that, if you have a student in your school who is an avid golfer and wants to play golf, there are avenues to play golf.
right,
We have a student in West Rutland this winter who will be doing indoor track at Fairhaven as a member to member.
right.
So if you have a person who really loves golf, who's really good at it, they can play golf.
Sure, yeah,
They just will have to do it from another school, but they could compete as an individual.
right, right,
So there is a way to continue to do that sport if that's what you want to do,
right,
without having to have a team. And again, we could find out that there are 6 kids who want to play golf that's what they do, and they don't play soccer, and that's fine. But I think you gotta kind of figure that out
Right.
first before you just accept it.
Mike?
I think you kind of made a point there. First of all, back on the survey thing. On the survey, I'd like to see another category so people can put down their interest. I think we might be shoehorning people into a traditional sport. We said before, there was baseball, now there's lacrosse. There used to be football in West Rutland, now there's soccer. So are we trying to preserve a traditional sport because we think we need to preserve a traditional sport in lieu of another sport that maybe the majority want to play? So I think we need to be careful about the survey in that we don't necessarily impose what we think they want to play. And so if we were to just only have a category of 2 or 3 sports without the option of an other, so people could be free and say, geez, maybe, you have 10 people who do bowling. That might be an evening act.
There are only so many, it can't be any sport because it has to be VPA
Exactly,
sanctioned.
and that's why I'm saying that would have to be in compliance with that. I'm not thinking outside of that. But
Well,
But if
that's
we
what I
have-
said, though,
if
like,
we-
take those sports and lay them out,
Right.
like, these are fall sports,
Right.
winter sports, spring sports.
But if you found that you wanted, there was more people wanting to play lacrosse than something else, are we afraid to eliminate something else so that they could play lacrosse?
I don't think we've ever said that here. I mean, that's how
No, I
we
just
started.
I just want to make sure we don't.
No.
That's the
Yeah.
point.
But I think what they're saying is, are we jumping on the bandwagon to start something because it's pretty and flashy with lots of glitz and
Right.
glitter, and then all of the sudden, maybe for 10 kids and you have 20 kids and aren't doing something. So that's why I think if we put a survey together that lists VPA sanctioned sports, but lists them in the categories of how they play against each other, that would, I mean, we had kids at our school that did, competed on horseback or did things like, there are different things and there are individual sports that kids do. And I don't think that any of our schools have ever done anything to inhibit that. I mean,
And again, there are avenues to do those things.
sure,
Yeah, and again, looking at the other ways, if you had a 15-person soccer team and suddenly 4 of those kids wanted to play golf, well, then you've got 11 kids
yeah,
who suddenly don't have a soccer team anymore because
Right.
4 of them wanted to play golf. And then what do those 11 kids do?
But in that, you know, it's all sales, because why should, I understand the 11 kids are gonna be impacted, but in the other hand, you're forcing the other kids who say, well, the only thing that I can play is soccer, because I don't have the other
They have
option.
the option to
So,
play golf at another school.
whatever it may be. So I think we need to be a little careful and not imply that you may be a superstar in soccer, or we want you to be a superstar in soccer, but the kid really wants to play golf.
Yes,
That's-
but you cannot, you can play golf, you can
Whatever the
compete as a golfer by playing with another school, where you cannot do that in soccer outside of Quarry Valley. And then if so many kids wanted to go to, let's say Proctor had 9 kids, suddenly they lost their soccer program, and those 9 kids wanted to do a member-to-member to West Rutland, you wouldn't be able to take all 9. You'd only be able to take a small percentage of them unless you turned it into a cooperative team. So again, it's just about putting more thought into it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, and the other
And
piece is we have to be thoughtful, because every time you start a new program, we start with new equipment, you know, and all of that. It's no
I don't
different
even know the cost.
that if someone came to us and said they wanted to have a hockey team. I mean, we're not gonna, you know. So I think that if we do put a survey together for each school, 6 through 11, with VPA sanctioned sports, and have them so they're set up seasonally, that will be information for ADs to bring back to us and see, you know, if there is, you know, a big change or a substantial change or a need for, you know, some kind of cooperative team or something like that. But without the data, we're just kind of
Right.
guessing.
Yeah, and again, you know, surveys are surveys. You know,
Right.
I have kids who, basketball starts Monday, and I've got signups, and guarantee you, Monday, there'll be 4 extra kids who want to
Sure.
play, because at the 24th hour, they've either decided not to play or play. So those surveys are, you know, it gives you a idea, but it
benchmark.
surely doesn't,
Yeah.
Or
Answer
kids
the
that
whole
sign up
question.
and then don't show up.
or don't
Yeah.
show
Yeah,
up.
it's a
So-
snapshot
Yeah,
of time
but
of what
it's-
someone was
Snapshot of
thinking
time
in
of
that
what a
moment.
15-year-old mind is
Sounds good
thinking
to me.
about.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, I have to
Yeah.
practice this
But at
early in the
least we
morning.
have
or
something to look at it and go with. So, okay. Any other questions? Sarah, you have a question?
I was just going to say if there's interest in collecting data around, you know, the possibility that certain sports siphon off students who currently play a particular sport, would there be a way in the survey for a student to indicate a current sport that they play right now, as well as what sports they have an interest in playing?
So we would know, no, we wouldn't know that.
Wasn't sure if the survey was going to be sent out anonymously, in which case you'd have to ask for
You do a
more
preference.
identifying information, or it could probably, I guess, still be sent out anonymously, but given our
Read your
small
preference.
numbers, you'd be able to identify.
Yeah, they could rate their preference on sports. I mean,
Well,
I
sure,
don't-
I guess I'm just saying, if I'm a student who right now I play soccer, but I have a real interest in rock climbing, and I see rock climbing on the list, I might say, you know, yes, I want to do rock climbing, but that could potentially take me away from the soccer team, and I just heard that vocalized as a concern, so.
yeah, I don't think our numbers are so large that we couldn't probably kind of pull that from. You could do it grade wise, and that would give you a better idea when you send them out, even if you do it anonymously. You could
Yeah, I think grade,
tag it
yeah.
by grades, and that would give you a better idea of how you're gonna change numbers. So you could do grade and then
Preference.
sex, and then that would also be another tag.
Yeah.
You'd have to do that. All right, any other questions for Joe or Jake?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So I know that bass fishing is done at one of the other schools aside from Poultney.
Mhm.
So would that be put as an option on the surveys for the Poultney kids?
Yeah,
So
bass
they could say
fishing,
yes? Okay.
it's actually a Quarry
Quarry
Valley
Valley
team.
team.
That's
Oh, okay.
correct.
So it's,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's all of them put together?
Yeah.
But just
Any-
this year, it
any-
happened to be just Proctor
Yeah.
kids. Last year, West Rutland was a West Rutland and a Proctor
Yeah.
student, right? And
Yep.
then
Yeah,
we haven't had a Poultney kid step forward to do it yet.
no,
Okay, I was just wondering
Yep.
because that way, you know, Poultney kids or West Rutland or whoever would
Yeah.
would know that that's even an option.
yeah. Yeah, any new sport that we start in our articles of agreement have to be Quarry Valley teams. We can't start individual teams within our local schools. That's part of the merger agreement. All right, guys, that's it.
Thank you, guys. Thank
Thank you.
Yep.
You're leaving. You guys stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah. They take their candy and run like a
I'll
bunch of.
listen to it on the phone.
All right, moving on to approval of minutes. A motion will be in order for the approval of the October 17th minutes.
I'll move to approve the October 17 minutes.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Approval of warrants. You receive your warrants via your GRCSU email. Any questions, comments, concerns should be directed to Lewis. A motion will be in order for the approval of warrants.
I'll move to approve the warrants.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You have in your packets this evening the superintendent's report and principal's report. Was there anything you wanted to add, Chris?
I just wanted briefly just highlight some things from the strategic plan, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just more for our community. So we held our second session or second meeting for the strategic plan on November 7th. I do want to thank the staff members, the board members, parents, and we actually had some Quarry Valley students who showed up at the meeting. So I want to thank you for your participation and attendance. It was greatly appreciated. This meeting really was set up to undergo what's called perceptual data review, and that's where we do what's called a SWOT analysis. SWOT, as an acronym, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And through surveys and through discussions and through our past, our first meeting, we identified some common trends or themes across these areas. And as a result of these common themes, we were able to identify our 5 priority areas. And the 5 priority areas are, and this is in alphabetical order, so it's not ranked by any means, academic success, communication, community engagement, school climate culture, and school improvement. And as I said in some, the other board meetings, what I found most interesting about our 5 priority areas is these are also the same talking points that we've had in each one of our local districts, concerns about things, areas we want to improve upon. So when we have these 5 priority areas, the next step would be for our GRCSU writing team, which is composed of our central office and building administrators, is to take a look at these goals, develop success criteria, and begin drafting a strategic plan. And that will be brought back to the design team on February, I'm going to make sure the correct date, February 6th, for the review. And then at that time, we will decide if we need to bring that to the board or if there are any adjustments or changes that need to be made. But the February 6th meeting, public are still invited to attend. So if there are any board members or parents or community members that would like to be a part of this, or students, you're more than welcome to come back and provide feedback on the first draft of our strategic plan. I also just wanted to quickly highlight, there were some students, and I know that whenever we have an opportunity to recognize students, I want to do that. There were a number of individuals who were named to the VSCA, which is Vermont Soccer Coaches Association, Division 4 All-State Soccer Team. From Poldney, we had Hannah Welch. Proctor, we had Jenna Devine, Joel Denton, Isabel Greb, Matt Knopf, and Emma Palmer. From West Rutland, we have Ariana Combs, Peyton Guay, Tristan Rock, and Emma Savine. I apologize if I got any of those names wrong. I did my best with them. And I also want to just quickly congratulate Poldney High School's Craig Bapty, who will be representing the South Squad at the 21st Annual Vermont North-South High School football game. The game we played at Norwich University's Sadding Field on November 20th, which I think was yesterday, at 1 o'clock. So I just wanted to say congratulations to those student athletes on a great season and for the recognition. So, and the rest of the information there is more for informational purposes. If any questions, you can reach out to me. The VSA link, we were told, is still available. So if you did not have an opportunity to attend the conference and you would still like to take a look at the highlights, the link is still available, so you can still register. If there's an issue, you can contact myself or Susan Glowski, and she'll make it available for you. Okay.
Great.
Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thanks. Moving on to principals report, they're in your packet for information. We do have, a couple requests in, high school principal packets for, trips. So from Proctor High School, there's a request for the senior class trip to Six Flags from June 2nd. And that's simply because they're going out of state because they'll be returning that evening. And then the second is for Mrs. Garcia. Senora wants to take them to the culinary playground, New Hampshire's cooking school, May 19th, once again. That is a class that would be out of state, so that's why they're coming to us. And then the senior trip for West Rutland, which is to Portland, Maine, and they would be staying overnight, 1 or 2 nights.
Yeah, they have actually, so 3 choices. Either to the ranch, which we're all familiar with, which would be a 1 or 2 nighter, or to Portland, Maine, or to Boston. They're not a combined trip. They're going to choose
Choice.
one of these.
Okay. So, a motion would be in order to approve, we'll start with Proctor. A motion would be in order to approve the senior class trip to Six Flags and Senora's trip to the culinary playground of New Hampshire.
I'll motion it.
Catherine, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the next motion would be to approve, I'm just going to say out-of-state travel for the senior class trip, and then Jay will let us know when they decide where they're going. So a motion would be in order to approve out-of-state travel for the senior class of 2023 for their senior trip.
I'll motion it.
All right, Catherine. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to finance. I don't see Lewis with us.
So Lewis will not be here tonight. He is
Okay.
on his way back from his trip, so
Oh.
he apologizes but can't be here. So,
No
so he said we can
little,
spend whatever he wants.
oh, I was hoping we were gonna get one of those videos again where he's driving down,
Until his
Sun
credit card-
Street Boulevard or something.
Trees
His
in the
credit card
background.
gets
Yeah. Okay, so, do you wanna lead, budget discussion, Chris, or is there a discussion to have? Everyone has the second draft of the budget in their packet?
Correct. And I know Lewis also gave a sheet, the budget update that kind of outlined just some of his thoughts and some things that had been discussed. I think the biggest thing was just that, there is one item that we will need to discuss in the executive session around personnel. So we'll hold off on that.
Okay,
But as you can see from the budget updates, the goal was to keep our budget right around 3%, and right now we are below that. But there might be some things we want to discuss which may place that just slightly above 3%. I know that Lewis wanted to highlight that with healthcare, VHI did send a recommendation to 12.7%, so that did have an impact. But for the most part, like I said, our budget looks in a pretty good place. So.
okay. Any questions about the budget update that Lewis prepared? And you will all see that, and we can have this discussion next month when Lewis is here, but due to the ballot language, we would have to warn the surplus again being deposited into capital maintenance and extra co-curricular. And that certainly is a recommendation that Lewis is supporting. So that's a discussion we can have at the December meeting if those numbers need to change, but that will have to be warned on the article. All right, hearing none, we will have to move into executive session at the end of the meeting for the budget. We'll move on to contract recommendations. Before you You have for professional staff, Lynn Ryan for a Proctor Elementary long-term sub position. For extracurricular, we have Alan White, West Rutland Boys JV, Stephanie Hart, West Rutland Girls 5-6 basketball, Jeremy Cole, Proctor High School Boys JV, Keith Harrington, Pulteney High School, Vermont History Day advisor, Melissa Christensen, Pulteney High School National Honor Society advisor, Melissa Christensen, Pulteney High School Art Club advisor, Cindy Wagner, Pulteney High School Yearbook advisor, Don
Sarley.
thank you, Pulteney High School Student Council advisor, Eric Deppert, Pulteney Elementary 5-6 basketball, Ryan Murphy, Pulteney Elementary 3-4 girls basketball, Michaela Woodbury, Pulteney High School 7-8 winter cheerleading, Megan Franzoni, Pulteney High School winter varsity cheerleading, Jessica Mivak,
Mavich, it's Mavich.
Pulteney High
Yes,
School
and then,
7-8
Mahiva.
girl basketball, Todd Hayes, Pulteney High School girls varsity basketball. Todd Montana, Pulteney High School varsity boys basketball. Dave Parker, Proctor 7-8 boys basketball. Joe McCarron, Proctor varsity girls basketball. Stephen Torres, West Rutland 7-8 boys basketball. Brian DeBonis, Pulteney High JV boys basketball. Melissa Guay, West Rutland 5-6 boys basketball. Lindsay Sabo, Pulteney High JV girls basketball. Shannon Mock, Pulteney High 7-8 boys basketball. And Janae McGee, West Rutland 7-8 girls basketball. A motion would be in order to approve the contract recommendations as read.
I got something before we do that.
Okay.
I just have a general question. How are these numbers? There's a big fluctuation in the numbers, and I'm just curious. I got a grouped up JV varsity 7-8, and the numbers are just fluctuating. So I'm just wondering how.
So the numbers, the stipends, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So each school came to the merger with their co-curricular schedule. Those schedules have not changed since we've merged. As you recall, that we had a study when we went through negotiations. It was rejected, and each school has the same stipend schedule that we had prior to merger.
Okay. There's just some big differences. Yeah.
There are. And
I personally like to see it more uniform. I don't know if that's something that we can do. There's some big differences. I mean, I know you guys know.
yeah.
Nate, I can speak for Pulteney. I know some of them, it depends on, like, you know, if you're a first year coach, it's so, even if it, like, we'll just say 7th, 8th grade, if you're a first year coach, it's so much. If you've coached for, I think it's like 5 years or more, it goes up. And so some of this is based on experience as well. And obviously varsity gets paid more than the middle school, but that's why there is some fluctuation too. It depends on experience of the coaches.
And some schools don't pay some of the positions that other schools do pay.
Okay.
All right. Was there a motion?
No, should have the motion first before discussion.
A motion would be in order to approve the contract recommendations as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in
Right.
favor? Oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to put on the record that I do not agree with the differences. So I won't support the motion. Thanks.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion passes by majority. Okay, moving on to policies. Second read policies. E7, policy on non-discriminatory mascots and school branding. E5, selection of instructional materials. Those are the two second read policies. Motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to move those.
Discussion. So I have discussion. One is selection of instructional materials. That policy was deleted by the VSBA in May 11th, so I'm not sure why we are reaffirming that policy and not taking the new policy. And secondly, the policy on non-discriminatory mascots and school branding will become policy in January, whether we vote it through or not. So, any further discussion?
Can we vote on these individually?
She made a motion to approve them both. Sarah?
I was just gonna say, when, when the instructional materials policy went through on first read, I emailed, I noticed the same thing, that it had been taken down from the website as a model policy, and I emailed Eric and Kristen, and it sounded like Eric had said that the VSBA had removed many of the model policies primarily to reduce their handbook as new required statutes are requiring policies that can overlap with existing policies.
That's not why it was removed. I mean, I can tell you
Right,
that.
right. So, thank you for bringing this up. It may have been, so the committee, anyway, the long story short was he said that the policy committee would review it again and they'd bring my concerns to the committee. So I would be curious to know if that was discussed, and since we're seeing pretty much the same policy in front of us, what that discussion was and how it resulted in sort of seeing the same policy.
I don't know. Do you know, Kristen?
I am going to go back. I mean, the quantities of policies that we go through, let me just go back and look real quick. If you guys want to discuss the other one while I'm just looking this up, I can hopefully give you some insight into that.
Those were just in our packet.
I'm just going back through to look at.
Well, the VSBA does have a new policy up that's very different from the policy that came before us, that they put out November 1st of this year for selection of instructional materials.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if, you know, the timing of how we meet versus when we, because I remember talking about this, but I'm not remembering the exact details, so I gotta look back at my notes here.
Are you interested in withdrawing your motion if they want to vote on these independently?
Yes, I can rescind the motion
Okay.
if you would prefer to.
So Lisa,
Right? Yes?
the new policy developed by the VSBA was adopted on November 1st, which may have been after, considering that this is a second read.
Right.
So therefore, I would recommend just, send this back to committee to update with the new model policy by the VSBA.
Okay.
I'll make the motion for that. That we vote on these independently, but that we send back the.
Okay. So Mike makes a motion to vote on the policies independently and to send G5 selection of instructional materials back to committee for the adoption of the new selection of instructional materials from the VSBA of November 1st, 2022. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For sending it back?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, so that is G5. A motion would be in order to approve E7, policy on non-discriminatory mascots and school branding.
I will make that motion.
Discussion. It's my understanding at this time discussion is to be whether we believe that our branding, our mascots are discriminatory. Is that correct? Chris?
Once it's been adopted by the SU, then that discussion would be, we'd open that up in December.
Okay, thank you.
And then we'd also have a procedural piece with that as well.
Yep.
So once this goes through November 30th, I would then bring the procedural piece for
Okay.
review.
All right. All those in favor of E7, policy on non-discriminatory mascots and school branding, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So can I just see a show of hands for those for yay on passing the policy? You can just raise your hand if you're, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Jessica, are you voting? 4.
Did you talk?
Yep. All right. First read policies, search and seizure of students by school personnel. F21, admission of resident students. G4, selection of library materials. H3, advertising in schools, public solicitations, student fundraising. These are first reads, but I would also make the comment again that F21 was deleted from the VSBA on June 14th, and that is covered in statute, and that's why it was removed. So I would recommend that the committee remove that from our policy folder as well. First reads do not require action.
I just want to remind people again, if you do see something that you don't like in the language, to definitely specify where, like if you can send me or Eric or.
It's not the language, it's the entire policy has been removed from the VSBA.
No, I just mean in general, not particular to this, you're right, yeah. But also for any policy that if you actually can edit the document or write it out where specifically, so we don't have to guess exactly the portion that you're talking about, like if you want to insert a word or a phrase,
right?
It's really helpful the more specific you can get, because otherwise we get to second read when we have a million of these things to get through. And so we're doing our best to kind of be timely but also accurate. So
right, I just think it's important if the VSBA has removed something that we probably should be in lockstep with them.
that makes sense.
Okay. All right, future meeting dates, December 19th. Future agenda items, you can contact Chris or myself to put on the agenda, but we will be discussing budgets again in December, so let's keep that in mind. Anything else to come before the board? All right, we will require a motion to move into executive session for.
Just ask a quick question.
Sure.
Are the first reads that we're doing right now, are those gonna be brought up again at the next?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we require an executive session to move a motion to move into executive session for personnel. Motion by Mike. We're going to take 5 minutes. Everybody that's virtual should have a executive session link to move into. All right, and we'll be back here at 7 o'clock for executive session. Okay? All right, thank you.